Welcome on the next talk, on the next presentation on our Python Summit. Right now, this one is, I think, very, very important from the perspective of the whole ecosystem. I remember Airflow like 10 years, maybe 12 years ago, this kind of rising star of scheduling. And I don't remember when actually Airflow stopped being just a scheduler, starting to become a more standard for writing pipelines, runtimes, executing tasks, all of that. For now, welcome Jarek Potiuk, one of the major maintainers and people behind the Airflow right now. And I'm really happy to hear what Airflow 3 is bringing to the table, to the ecosystem. So Jarek, the stage is yours.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Rafa. Welcome, everyone. I'm super happy to talk about Airflow. As usual, that was like probably my 20th or 30th talk about Airflow altogether. Last few years, I've been mostly doing Airflow. Okay, something. Just let me bring back the presentation. A few words about myself. I'm an Apache Airflow PMC member and committer. I'm also a member of the Apache Software Foundation and very much involved in the security. I'm also a member of the ASF Security Committee, so I will throw in some security things in the presentation because that's actually quite an important part of Airflow 3. Some links here to my social media. You can follow me there. I'm pretty active, especially on LinkedIn. I think that's the main medium that I'm using. The Airflow. So for those who know Airflow, I don't have to explain too much, but maybe a very, very short refresher for those who don't know Airflow or haven't used Airflow and want to learn about it. Airflow is like, as Rafa mentioned a bit, is a scheduler originally, but I would say the name orchestrator is much better. And also from my past experience, I'm a choirist. I sang in a choir for 30 years. So for me, Airflow is more like a conductor of an orchestra. When Airflow, like when you have an orchestra playing, there are lots of instruments, lots of different music played, and in order to have the music play together well and be a great piece, you have to have a conductor who tells everyone what to do when, and basically does nothing. It doesn't produce any music, but it actually tells others how to make the music work together. And this is basically what Airflow does for all the data processing engines in general, whatever the engine is. This might be like something that happens in the cloud, something in like Apache Spark, or something like a piece of processing run in a Docker, or whatever, any other kind of data processing engines you can imagine. And Airflow, what it does, and this is what when I gave this presentation last time, someone told me that I should give this at this place. So I'm showing that. It's just that Airflow is able to manage, like with Airflow, you're able to create and manage workflows, like tasks being executed. As you can see here, there are some tasks that are being executed as part of a DAG, which is like, yeah, we decided not to name it after the name that is coming. Like it's a DAG, which is a workflow basically. It used to be called the acyclic graph. Like we don't even remember the name. So like it's a DAG. And it's a workflow that processes some tasks, and Airflow provides a way how to author the DAGs, how to create them, how to run them, how to execute them, and orchestrate all the music played, data processing being played. So this is the most important part of Airflow, how to monitor them and see how they are executed. So you can see here like DAG being executed multiple times, multiple scheduled intervals of the DAG in the past, and you can see how they ran, whether it succeeded or failed, whether it was skipped, etc. And you can just monitor the history of execution and monitor them in a single place, and you can have thousands and thousands of those DAGs and tasks, and you can monitor them from one place, which basically make Airflow a perfect tool for when like many people writing and authoring the DAGs, and many people, and just a few people, just a handful of people monitoring them and making sure that they are running in production, in sync, producing the beautiful music or data, actually, the great data that you want to do in a consistent way and without any problems. And when there are problems, you can deal with them. So that's basically what Airflow is. Why Airflow 3? Rafael mentioned the 10 years, and yes, 10 years is when Airflow started. Airflow started in Airbnb, then it was incubated into Apache Software Foundation. And that's an important part of and a very important feature of Airflow, or property of Airflow, that it is an Apache Software Foundation software, which makes it different from many other tools like that, because we are truly vendor neutral. We are run by the Apache Software Foundation, which is an open source steward. We will never change the license, unlike some other licenses that have been changed recently by different vendors. We are vendor neutral. We have multiple vendors contributing, lots of contributors, etc. So like this is Apache Software, being part of Apache Software Foundation is super important. And this is why Airflow is so popular. And like, it's like Airflow and anything else, like the difference is huge. Airflow is the one that is actually used by everyone pretty much. All the other things are just much smaller. So we've been incubated for a few years in Apache Software Foundation, and that's more or less the time when I joined the project. And since then, I'm working fully as an independent contributor and maintainer. I'm not employed anywhere. I'm just working for myself as a boss, and different stakeholders paying me for being contributor. That's a fantastic job. I can recommend that. That was a side comment. So since then, we migrated to Airflow 2 in around 2021, and I was part of this. I was already contributing back then and heavily. But since then, we had a very steady stream of features coming from 2.1 to 2.10 recently. That's the latest kind of minor release of Airflow, and we maintain backwards compatibility like fully. Like we are committed to Semver. So then we decided at some point of time, okay, it's time to do Airflow 3, and why? Because Airflow 2 has some like very good strengths. User base and community, I mentioned already. We have a huge number of users. We have a huge community. We have 3,000 contributors. That's the biggest 3,200, I think, right now. That's the biggest project in terms of numbers of contributors contributing to a project in Apache Software Foundation. Like Apache Software Foundation is the biggest open source foundation out there, and Airflow is the biggest in terms of contributors project in Apache Software Foundation, which says something. We're very versatile. Rafael mentioned that as well. We started as a kind of scheduler and just data processing, but people use it for different things, like many different things. We have steady stream of new features coming, as you saw in the previous picture, but we're also learning from the industry, and those features that we added in the meantime were like, okay, this particular tool is doing it this way. Okay, this looks like it's an interesting one. We can incorporate that. Another one is doing in a different way. We can incorporate that and extend. And we've been doing that for Airflow 2. And so Airflow 2 right now, 2.10, is very much different from Airflow 2.0 that we released in 2021. But we also, so we could continue doing that. Yeah, we could continue evolving Airflow in Airflow 2, but we have also some weaknesses. Like we are rooted in ETL, so ETL was like kind of just the main feature, and everything we do is like kind of ETL plus something else. Yeah, it's not like that versatile as we could be. The architecture is not fully modernized, especially security part and kind of enterprise readiness is not there. I'll tell about that a little bit more. We have like weak AI workflow support, I would say, but like it means like 30% of our users already use Airflow for AI, even if we've never ever thought it's going to be used there, like when it was created. So it's good enough, but for us it's not good enough. Like we want to make it much more AI workflow friendly, and I'll tell a little bit more about that one. There's like one big thing that Lots of people complained we don't have like DAG change management. If you evolve your DAG, it's very cumbersome. How you basically should copy the DAG if you want to change it. Right now, we want to change it. There is some deployment complexity because Airflow has like 719 dependencies, and I'm the dependency guy in Airflow. I take care about making sure that it all works. It's a difficult task. So we want to simplify that. And it has some steep learning curve that we want to improve a little bit. And why now? Because AI ML workflows are important right now. It's like not the only thing that happens, but of course it's hyped and everyone talks about that, etc. So we want to make sure that Airflow is prepared for that. The users have different needs and they have different skills and proliferating skills. When we started, like, we assumed all of our users know Python and they are pretty fluent in Python. This is not the case anymore. Like, there are many more users coming who don't know Python or use other languages, or they just use Python for, like in Jupyter notebooks and nothing else. And they don't care about, like, more kind of sophisticated usages. And we want to adapt to those users. But Python is, of course, winning in the data science, but it's not only in processing and ML, but it's not the only one. There are many more languages right now also, and many more tooling is written in different languages, mostly because of speed, integration, lots of other things like Go, Java, whatever. So we want to respond to that as well. And we think the time is now for that. And we also had some technical depth piling, like literally now today we are taking 95th box from, or 94th box in one of the issues where we removed deprecations from all our providers. We removed all of them right now, preparing for Airflow 3, and it was 90 of them, and that's only providers. And we have like probably 90 more deprecations in, or hundreds more in Airflow, and we want to get rid of that. It just slows us down. And we also recognize, and something that I see as a kind of coming even after 3, so we are more laying foundation now. The streaming is more important than ever. There, like, Airflow was traditionally batch processing, but we have like streaming being so important in many different usages, and Airflow is not very well suited for streaming, like Kafka, Flink, you name it. And we thought, like, okay, we don't go streaming full scope, like do the same things that Kafka does, for example, and like billions of small messages per second. But we can do better on handling smaller messages more often, like just going, I call it a streamish experience. Like, it's not fully streaming, there's like a micro batching, lots of small batches, and that seems to be much more manageable and responds to many needs that streaming is introduced for. And we are moving Airflow in this direction. We want to move Airflow in this direction. So a few basic principles that were guiding us for Airflow 3. First of all, we want to have most Airflow 2 features work out of the box without any changes. There are still some exceptions, like we got rid of some of the old, unused, and long time deprecated things. But generally speaking, what you use in Airflow 2 should continue work if you are using it right. Like, there are some abuses of a number of features which we are aware of, and we are deprecating and warning people about them. So some of those will stop working, and you'll have to adapt to new ways if you did it not the way how we recommended it. So smooth migrations for users is our top priority. AI ML data workflows as our first-class citizens. So we are not longer tied to execution date as a kind of like data interval, kind of being the front and center of every single DAG processing. It's more like we allow all the kind of iterative inference models as well in Airflow natively. We want to enhance scalability, performance, and enterprise level readiness and security. The architecture changes we do are pushing us in, like, moving us in this direction, which was always like wanted by some of our users, and now we are just doing it in a secure way. We have like Airflow asset and partitioning native. Assets and partitions are important important things that everyone is talking about as well, like iceberg partitioning, all the like machine learning models as assets are important. And also as a parallel track, we want to make Airflow a little bit easier to deploy and learn how to use it. So going to the changes, the UI. When we started with Airflow 2, so like here, just going back, so those are the numbers. I will not talk about them. There are the Airflow improvement proposals. We have a series of Airflow improvement proposals which are numbered, and they are describing what you want to do. So you also can go and check in detail what is in them. All is public, all is documented, all is discussed on the dev list, etc. So I'm just telling what we already told publicly, but in a condensed way. So when we moved to Airflow 2, we wanted to migrate to new UI. And we did it partially. We just refreshed the look and feel, but behind the scenes, the mechanism like Flask app builder, the way how you have to refresh the screens, etc., this remained basically the same. But gradually in Airflow 2, we replaced part of it with modern React UI approach, where you have like JavaScript calls, not the whole page refreshes, better design, nicer design, modern design, look and feel. Refreshing only pieces of screen and things like that. But also it reached some limit. We couldn't like replace it piece by piece. So now we're replacing all of it. So we are removing all the old UI, replacing with the new UI. So this is a kind of snapshot of what you will see in new Airflow. It's like super modern, following the latest trends in UI, so that you can actually feel nice interacting with Airflow. Like that's the goal, like to make it nicer for users. So you can see things like that. You can see kind of modern, even graying, making it looks modern and nice, and also interact better. So like all these pieces that you see there, they will be interacting much better with like faster, lower time to refresh the page, automatically refreshes, and all these things that you can see. So just a few snapshots of what you can expect from new Airflow 3. And those will change still, like we are still adapting and learning, and for example, introducing a color blind scheme as well, and all these kind of modern things that you expect from modern tooling. The second thing I wanted to show is the DAG versioning, and just a little bit of that without going too much in detail. So we have this, when you will have DAG that is changing, you will see this kind of small triangle here with information that the DAG changed. So that's one thing that you will see. You will see that it's changed, but also you see that, for example, the previous version of DAG didn't have the welcome task, but the new version had it. And Airflow will start understanding that, because before that it wasn't understanding that there was like different version of different tasks. So for example, a different version of the same DAG in the past. So for example, what will happen, like you will not be able to clear the task that was not existing in the previous run of the DAG, or you will be able to rerun the DAG in the version that was there in the past. That's also a possibility. Yeah. So you'll be able to select the version of the DAG that you want to interact with. This is like a big change, something that our users always wanted, and that will allow you to manage your DAGs in a more kind of easier way, because you'll be able to evolve the DAGs, but also you'll be able like to clear the DAGs from the history using the old versions. So this is a very highly requested feature, and we are very excited about that. The change in the architecture. So the main change in the architecture, that's that one that goes into security and speed and lots of other things. So this is kind of like backbone, foundation for all the other changes, is task isolation. This is how Airflow architecture looked before. Like 10 years ago, that was a good architecture. Now, not that good. So we can have a single central metadata database, and all the components of Airflow are communicating with the database, which means that if you have like thousands of workers, every worker has to have a direct connection to database. That's a pain and in many ways, and we always recognize that. We always knew that. Like for the last few years, people are complaining about that, and we had some ways to deal with that. But in Airflow 3, we are doing the right thing. So we are changing it so that the metadata DB is only contacted by some of the central components, and they are talking to it. So like scheduler, web server, and trigger are still talking to the metadata database. We have new task API component that talks to the database. And all the things that are running user code and can be distributed and run somewhere else, they are talking to the database, not directly, but through the task API server using HTTPS, modern fast API implementation, which means that the tasks itself will be much less overhead. They will not communicate with the database. They will not set up a database connection. So we'll be able to run many more of them. They will have much less dependencies, so they will take much less memory. So like much more, like the overhead will be far limited that comparing to that to Airflow 2. And also the important thing is the security, because like this, not anymore, like in Airflow 2, anyone who could author the DAG and write a task could change the database. That was like, what? You can update the database from being a DAG author. That was part of our security model. That will change. So as a DAG author, you will no longer be able to impact other DAGs or tasks or change the database, because this will be going through the API, which is HTTPS, and very, very, very limited things that you can do. So no direct DB access, small set of dependencies. One thing I didn't mention, the task, you will be able to run the task in any language in the future. Like we start with Go, but the task SDK will be implemented in Go, Java, whatever, JavaScript, TypeScript. People want to run machine learning tasks in TypeScript. So you'll be able to run them natively and without all the Python code around. So you'll be able to run them natively as Python, as the code natively developed by you. So no longer task has to be a Python code. That's a huge change. And also remote task execution. So one of our PMC members already uses Airflow for running the tests on edge devices, like like hardware small devices. And he took like Airflow 2 in a kind of development version. He did remote executor and he runs it in production right now to test those small devices, so you can run Airflow tasks on Raspberry Pi, for example. That means that the tasks are fast and can be run ad hoc. So the tasks are not anymore involved with the actual data interval. You can just run it. They have low overhead. Like they are still connected to a DAG run, but you can have multiple DAG runs executed for the same kind of data, like machine learning models or inference run multiple times on using the same workflow. It's almost like a streaming, because the overhead will be so small that you will be able to run thousands and thousands of those tasks per hour or per minute. Like depends, of course. Like we haven't did the final benchmarking, but much more than you used to be doing before. Airflow traditionally expected that your task is like not a millisecond or half a second. It's something longer, because the overhead itself took a longer time. Right now, this is gone. Like the overhead will be much smaller. And we will also have external driven scheduling, so you'll be able to trigger DAGs from outside very easily. The edge execution I already mentioned. So there is like an agent that you run on a small device, and you can run tasks of Airflow there in multiple languages. It could be like a Go task executed on a Raspberry Pi device, for example. DAG authoring. So we have some changes coming to the data sets. So data sets are now becoming assets, because they are not only data sets, but also like machine learning model can be an asset, or like collection of files somewhere can be an asset. And you can interact with assets by defining them. So Airflow will be not only on the DAG level, but also on the task level. You will be able to say, okay, this task expects this asset as an input and acts on it. You can schedule on assets. You can schedule on multiple assets. This is already there, but with data sets, but with assets, it goes to the higher level, much more integrated and much more native for Airflow. And that might not come in 3.0, that might be in 3.1, because we want to make sure 3.0 is out yearly. I will tell at the end when. So traditionally, we have non-partitioning assets. So like when we have a workflow acting on an asset, it will override the whole asset and will create a new version of it, basically. But with Airflow 3, you will be able to have workflows that acts on partitions of assets only. So the same assets will be the output, but only some partitions will be updated by this particular round of the workflow. It's like, filling in the iceberg, tables and partitions. That's kind of like the kind of use case that we're talking about. The DAG bundles, this solves a long-standing kind of issue or property of Airflow, that you had a DAG folder that was continuously scanned every few seconds or minutes, or every 30 seconds by default by Airflow, and all the DAGs were parsed, every one of them. So right now we are making it configurable, so you can define, okay, this DAG will not produce dynamic data, so it can be parsed, or this group of DAGs, so they can be parsed once when they change, and those DAGs are actually dynamic and can change, so you can probably should parse them more often. And we are adding this like this configuration that you can define how often things are parsed when. Also, there is another change, and that also might come a little bit later, but that's planned. So this kind of parsing bundles, like some implementations will be there already from the Airflow 3.0. So right now, everything is relying on DAGs being in the folder, but not anymore in the DAG folder, not anymore. We are implementing something called DAG bundle backend, and you will be able to even write your own backend. And this DAG will define, okay, like where I want to pull my DAGs from. For example, it will be native support from Git. So Airflow will have a native support without the Git sync to pull the data from the Git, the DAGs from the Git, and make them serialized to database as DAG files. No longer that will require an actual DAG file in the DAG folder. That's a huge change for how you will be able to deploy DAGs. Easy deployment, very quickly. We're improving standalone Airflow. We are improving messaging and debugging. We've done some survey, and based on that, we improve things for how debugging will be done, and how messages are printed to the users, and how the remediations are presented to the users. Dependency separation. This task isolation allows to separate dependencies, different dependencies for Airflow, different for web servers, different for scheduler, different for task, and each of them will be much smaller. So the whole dependency hell will be much less of a hell in Airflow 3. We are decoupling authorization to make it easier for integration with enterprises, and some enterprise-grade deployment options with HTTPS and task isolation. Security, I will touch base on that a little, because that's my favorite subject. So I had to add it. And it's important for Airflow 3 as a theme. We already are pretty much protected when we produce Airflow. We've implemented a lot of, not protected, like we have a very good security process around producing Airflow. We've implemented a lot of improvements. We've been funded last year by a Sovereign Tech Fund, who paid a lot for our build and development and release process to be improved. And we are very careful about security, and all these threat models that you can see here. This is a so-called salsa threat model. When you're producing the software, different threats can come in different places, and like those things here, pretty much like we have already addressed, but we are addressing them now as well. We are continuously improving that part. But there is one piece that I wanted to talk about, specifically dependencies. Airflow has more than 700 dependencies in total, and basically security problem in any of them might come to Airflow when you're using it. So we have to, this is called supply chain security. So this one is already done. And this one is, we are working, if you have a huge project with Alpha Omega, which is a fund in US that I'm leading that project, and with Python Software Foundation. We are working on contacting and improving security processes of all our dependencies, like reviewing all of them, all 700 of them, which might seem crazy, but yes, we are trying to achieve, like, to know our dependencies and to know whether they are secure or not, and actually to help them and improve them, and even pay them, because we have the money from Alpha Omega, to pay them to improve their security when we see that we need to improve them. So it's like huge project that will take years, but we are really like jump starting right now. And I recently contacted first batch of projects, and we are discussing this. So for your future, we'll be able to have run React UI plugins, UI control backfills, which is an important one. No longer logging to a container or Airflow to run backfill. You will be able to trigger backfill from the UI and run it from and monitor it while it's running from the UI. Lineage auto-hook instrumentation, observability, data lineage is super important, and we have it already embedded. But with lineage and hook instrumentation is going to be much more deep. So like task flow tasks will also be instrumented with the open lineage, and we will be able to observe the data as being transmitted between tasks. This is really cool. We are working on enhanced CLI security, so we will be able to run a separate CLI and communicate with Airflow, so you don't have to anymore log into Airflow to run the CLI commands. That's an improvement that might come in 3.1, but maybe not. Maybe we'll manage to do it in 3. Multi-team, that's for sure something that we will add later, 3.1 and 3.2. Then asset auto read write, so we want to implement it in the way that we connect it to the like S3 file or object, and when it's modified, we get a DAG triggered. This is not yet automated. You have to trigger it externally, but in the future we might do it as well. So Airflow is more active than ever. This is like just 1 week of November, where we have 138 merge pull requests, which is like more than 20 a day. Yeah, including Saturday and Sundays, remember. We have like lots of open pull requests, 130 commits to main pushed in a week, 60 authors. So you see, there's like a whole bunch of people are working on that, including like the Astronomer, Amazon, Google. They are all putting all their efforts as biggest stakeholder into making Airflow 3 happen. So like this is like a super busy repository. We are number 20 in terms of velocity of commits from all the projects in GitHub, number 20. So like you can see that things are happening, and we have more than 3,000 contributors. How users are affected? Not much. If you are using Airflow in a good way that we recommend, that you are good. How users are affected? So like your migration will be smooth and easy, and all the stuff that you've been doing so far should be working pretty much out of the box, with some deprecations, removal, etc. We have a nice process for migration, and our like smooth migration is our priority. And another effect will be you will be able to do more with Airflow than you can do now, and more in a native way. And that's basically the effect of how users will be affected when early second quarter of 2025, when exactly we'll see. We are progressing towards that target, and it looks like doable. That's it. Thank you very much. If there are any questions, I'm happy to take them. I think I have like 3 minutes more.
Yes, Jarek, thank you for the presentation. I'm waiting for the questions on the channel. I have one. What is your favorite enhancement that you're thrilled about?
All of them are like, you know,
yeah,
super cool. Like,
yeah, but you I'm sure you have your favorite one.
It's not a feature, my favorite, and something that I'll be working on. And I mentioned that across all these changes. So, and something that is not really user visible. Well, at least not the DAG author. It's more like deployment. The splitting Airflow into many smaller different components, each with its own dependencies, and being able to mix them together and match freely in your deployment. This is the feature that I'm looking forward most, because this also allows us to modernize our kind of build and development environment and make it like more standard. So over the last 4 years, I developed hundreds of thousands of lines of code to make Airflow works, and I'm just so happy that I can remove 10% of that, because the tools that were not catching up so far, like they caught up recently, like UV and few other tools in the Python ecosystem that allow us to replace parts of what I've been doing manually with some standards and some better tools that someone else developed, and that means removal of the code. But the end effect will be much better, and that's the thing that I'm so like super excited about Airflow, and this is like having those dependency splits and having the components that are independently built and released and work together, and you can put them in enterprise fashion, so that, you know, security is not affected by all the dependencies into all the components. It's like it's super cool thing. That's definitely my thing.
Okay. One question I'd like you to answer that in one sentence, please. The beginner's guide to Airflow, the best one.
Mark Lamberti's tutorials. There is a whole series of them. Mark Lamberti, look for his tutorials. He's the guy. He tells you how to start with Airflow immediately.
Mark Lambert. Okay.
Mark Lamberti.
Lambert.
He's the guy. You look for
Okay.
his tutorials and Udemy course. They have some courses. He has some courses, Udemy courses or Coursera courses or something. A few of those, and you can find the links to that in Airflow ecosystem. There is an Airflow ecosystem on the web page, and there is like learning places. So you'll find it there.
Okay. Thanks, Jarek. We don't have much more time. Thank you for coming to the conference, and maybe next time in person.
Yes, hopefully. If it's not winter, because I'm somewhere else.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.